Hello and welcome. I'm Kitty Gray, and today we're going to talk about self-judgment. We're going to have a very honest conversation about what it is, why it's so detrimental and painful and destructive to our self-esteem, and how to transform that destructive behavior into something positive, how to build a more healthy, constructive relationship with ourselves. So join me. For so many of us, we are seeking self-love. We want to treat ourselves better. We're consciously aware that we don't love ourselves, that we don't treat ourselves kindly. And the big goal is self-love. I want to love myself. There have been quite a few studies that have revealed that that is the #1 goal for people when they're approaching self-help work or they're working with a psychologist or a counselor. They're learning to better their relationship with themselves, to heal. And having done this work for so many years, working with individuals and with groups, and really honing in this method of the empowered heart, I've come to realize that one of the most destructive behavioral patterns that we humans experience, and I would say a majority of us, I would boldly say a majority of us, deal with self-criticism that is destructive, with self-judgment. And judgment isn't a bad thing. You know, to be judgmental in a constructive way, to be discerning, to use your better judgment, you know, that's a powerful skill. That's not something to view as bad or destructive. But when judgment is coming from a place of pain and fear, from unresolved trauma, and that judgment is then forcing us to see through a very narrow perspective, infused with pain and fear, a narrow perspective that's infused with an opinion and criticism, that can be destructive. And the reality is, when we're in that place of criticizing, of comparing, of saying hurtful things, that right there is an indication that we're in a slightly unconscious state and we're hurting. Okay, if you're very judgmental towards someone else, chances are you're hurting. You're aching inside, you're avoiding your own pain and that vulnerability of being with that pain and whatever it is that you're deeply afraid of, the unresolved trauma, and you're in a defensive state. So to even be judgmental, we're already in somewhat of an unconscious and defensive state. Okay, we're separated from ourselves, we're separated from presence. Now, what happens when that judgment is directed towards ourselves? I term it as dangerous. Self-judgment is dangerous. It's detrimental in so many ways. To building that relationship with yourself that's healthy, that's healing, that's made from love, judgment is the opposite. If you are saying hurtful things to yourself, you're telling yourself all the many reasons, you're reminding yourself. And when I say telling yourself, you're thinking. You know, that's another thing that's so mysterious about self-judgment is it's happening through thoughts. And again, in order to even be doing that, we're in a slightly unconscious state. So those may be compulsive, unconscious thoughts that are just rattling around and they're just playing in our minds. All the reasons we're not good enough. We're not successful. We don't look good. We don't sound good. We're an imposter. We're stupid. We're crazy. Those are hurtful things being said, very wounding, traumatic things being said, being thought and said inside of ourselves. The reason why it's so dangerous is you are both the villain and the victim. You are the one creating the trauma and receiving the trauma. Wounding and being wounded. And because it's happening inside of you, there's no one else to hold you accountable, to say, hey, whoa, what did you just say? What did you just say? No way. That's verbal abuse. That's destructive. That could destroy that person's self-esteem. No way, don't say that. Because somewhere inside, if you are the one saying that to yourself and you rightfully believe it, I believe I'm stupid. I believe I'm a bad person. I believe I'm not good enough. I believe I'm ugly. Whatever it is, the thousands and thousands of hurtful things we can say and think to ourselves, if you believe that, then the person who's receiving it, who is also you, believes they deserve it. You're the same, you are one being, but you're playing two different roles. So you're dividing and you're saying something hurtful and you're experiencing the impact of that pain. And it is an echo chamber of destruction. And you're just re-wounding yourself. And again, you wouldn't be doing that unless you had experienced trauma at some point. Chances are that might be learned behavior. Someone spoke to you that way. Someone said very hurtful things. Someone was verbally abusive towards you. And maybe at some point you started to believe it. You believed your self-worth based on what someone else perceived and projected towards you. And whether they're in the picture or not, now you are treating yourself that way. Now you are the verbally abusive person to yourself. And again, it's happening inside of you in a tightly enclosed space where no one else can hear what you're saying to yourself, so no one else is going to save you. And if we think of this triad of the hero, the villain, and the victim, and you are both the villain and the victim, the only one who can rise up to complete that triad, to bring you back to center, to heroically stop that behavior, is you. You're the only one that can heal that. You're the only one that can stop that cycle. And again, it may have started with someone else saying hurtful things to yourself, but now you are saying that to yourself. Now you are the abuser. And I realize that may be a very heavy burden to carry. That may be a very daunting realization. I am the one creating destructive harm to myself. I have a low self-esteem. I deal with shame. I'm insecure. I don't believe in myself. I'm struggling. I'm suffering. And I contribute to that. I may even be the one who contributes the most to my own suffering because I am the one who says such hurtful, destructive, traumatic, painful things to myself. And that realization is the turning point. That's the gateway to transformation, to healing, to realigning yourself towards presence and love, is recognizing that you're doing it. Okay, let's take a look at the map, and then we'll come back and continue this conversation. Let's look at the map. This map was designed to help make sense of all of this emotional, mental, psychological, internal landscape. You know, self-judgment being something that affects us emotionally. It's something that's happening mentally. And psychologically, we are engaging in a pattern and in a story that's affecting us. And that's what this map is for, to help make sense of this. So let's take a look here. As I mentioned before, if we're even in a judgmental state, judgmental towards someone else or towards ourselves, we're already in somewhat of a defensive state because our natural way of being is harmonious. Your natural state is harmonious, is present, is caring, is innocent, is compassionate, is loving. You know, that's who you were born as. That's your true self. So if you think of your true self as being a very judgmental, mean person, it's not true. That's not who you are. That's how you've learned to be to protect yourself because you've been through trauma, okay? So you've been through trauma, you've experienced wounding. Again, it's very, very likely that someone else has said hurtful things to you and been judgmental towards you. You've learned that behavior. And when you experienced that, it broke your heart. It was hurtful. You felt pain, you felt shame. When you've experienced that from someone else, Chances are, when you experience those hurtful things, you didn't have the support you needed. You didn't have the resolution, the connection, the release, the comfort, the love. Someone saying, I'm sorry, that's not true. I love you. You're wonderful. You're whole. You're beloved. You're valuable. I'm so sorry. You know, whether that happened through verbal or physical abuse or sexual abuse, us learning our worth based on others' actions and words, that's trauma, that's experience. We go into avoidance. We learn to protect ourselves. We learn to separate from the pain because we're not resourced to process it, because we don't have our needs met. So we protect ourselves. We desensitize, we distract, we start new patterns that separate us from presence, from sensitivity. And gradually, if we're not getting our needs met and we're not going through the realization and the awareness of recognizing, what am I doing? What is happening? How does this feel? This isn't okay. We become that. We become the destructive voice. We become the person who says hurtful things. You know, and that's whether we are people who grow up into parents who then treat our children the way our parents treated us, or we learn to treat others the way we were treated in a destructive way. That's all due to unresolved trauma. That's all due to an experience where we didn't come back to wholeness, where we weren't regulated and grounded back into feeling safe again. So here we are, we use the mask of the angry tiger, the defensiveness. This is the part of you who's avoiding your tenderness, who's avoiding your wounds, who's separated from yourself and moved into a place of unconsciousness. And now you're saying hurtful things. This is where we cause trauma. This is where we do hurtful things, when we're unconscious, separated from present, separated from ourselves. When we have unresolved trauma, where we never got our needs met, we become judgmental. Now, here's the complexity. You're judgmental. You're going to re-wound and say hurtful things to someone, to yourself. You see how this side of the process, the experience and the avoidance, is held in the realms of unconsciousness? And if we're not reaching a place of realization and consciousness and consciously observing what we're doing and feeling the impact of those hurtful things, we're staying in this echo chamber. We're stuck in this cyclical pattern of wounding ourselves, feeling pain and shame, somewhere inside feeling we deserve it, not accessing the support and the constructive tools we need to heal. We're abusing ourselves. And we're stuck in the cycle. We just keep doing it again and again and again, and we are suffering. We're suffering. If you are judgmental of yourself and you're saying hurtful things, and you're being verbally abusive, and unconsciously you are just reinforcing a destructive behavior and putting yourself down every day again and again and again, it's going to be really, really hard for you to free yourself through consciousness and awareness and resolution and get back to love. This is your home. This is where you belong. This is your true self. And you're separated from your true self. You are a long way from home to be suffering and causing so much destructive harm to yourself again and again. And I realize that someone else may have taught you that. Someone else may have been the one who initiated that destructive behavior and said hurtful things to you, but now this is your work. This is your life and your body and your choice. And you have to step into your power enough to realize, to be accountable, that you are saying hurtful things to yourself, that you are abusing yourself, that you are holding yourself back from freedom. One of the most important parts of this work of trauma resolution and healing is being accountable and recognizing this is now your work. And that's not a burden. It's not like, my parents didn't do the work, my mom didn't do the work, now I have to do all of the ancestral work and heal through the wounds and the trauma. There is an element of truth to that, but the reality this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for you to access the freedom that your parents deserved and never had access to. Anyone who has treated you so poorly has put you down and seeded that suffering inside of you. Unless they do the work on themselves and reach that same place of realization, this is my work, I have to work on myself, I have to heal, I have to forgive, I have to open, I have to transform out of unconsciousness into consciousness. Unless they do that work, they won't access the freedom they deserve. And we all deserve it. We all deserve that freedom. But again, this is your opportunity to experience a kind of love and internal harmony that only you can access. You have that power. You have the power to determine what kind of relationship do I want to have with myself. And even if I've never experienced it, even if I have no idea where to begin or how that would even look to love myself and wake up and feel grounded and whole and complete, and to not ever have to live in fear of someone putting me down because I've committed to never doing that to myself, even if that feels so far away, the biggest, most important step in getting there is realizing that this is your work, realizing, being aware of how you treat yourself. What do I say to myself? And because you may be doing this unconsciously, compulsively thinking destructive thoughts, it's going to be a little bit of work for you to wake up in those moments, to observe and to feel, to enter into awareness instead of avoidance and unconsciousness, to enter into awareness and say, wait a second, what did I just say to myself? I just said something so destructive, so painful, so wounding, so mean. How do I feel? Pause. Go through the steps. What just happened? What is happening? Observe and feel. It hurt. It hurt for someone to call me stupid. And I just did that to myself. And just because I did it to myself doesn't mean I can't feel it. It means I do feel it. And it hurts. I'm hurting inside. And when I speak to myself this way, I hurt even more. And I don't want to hurt anymore. I want to heal. I don't want to suffer anymore. I want to heal. I want to love myself. I want to feel present and grounded. I want to heal my relationship with myself. And even if my family members are far from getting there, even if they're still destructive and judgmental towards me and say hurtful things and think hurtful thoughts, this is my work. This is my power. This is my life. It's up to me to decide, how do I want to live? How do I want to feel? How do I want to walk through the world? How do I want to treat people? Because I'm a person too. I'm the most important person in my life. And there's a lot of pain and suffering in the world. There is a lot of suffering. There is war. There is trauma. There's famine. There's starvation. There's such destruction happening in the world. And you may feel that inside of yourself. But you have the power to make that change. You have the power to decide, how do I want to contribute to the world? Do I want to contribute to the suffering? Or do I want to step into my power and bring love? Because if my choice is to bring love and I'm still a verbally abusive person to myself, I'm not walking my talk. I'm not fully embodied in my intention. So I commit myself to starting right now and becoming more consciously aware of how I treat myself, observing and feeling, and then taking action. And I highly suggest that you apologize. When you catch yourself saying something hurtful, pause, take a breath. I'm sorry. And say it to your heart. Say it to the depths of your being. Say it to that inner child within you who's been hurt for so long, who's had such hurtful things said to them. Apologize. Because if you've been wounded and hurt by others, and then you're upholding that story of painful, destructive behavior towards yourself, there's nobody looking out for you. There's no one you trust. And if trust is hard for you, it's going to get a lot easier when you start to trust yourself, and you're going to start trusting yourself when you start treating yourself better with kindness, when you start caring and showing up and being a good friend to yourself instead of an abuser. As you become a good friend to yourself, you'll start to trust yourself, and self-trust is confidence. That's the definition. It's the opposite of insecurity and shame. So when you say something hurtful to yourself, you are contributing to insecurity and shame. You're hiding away. You're encouraging yourself to hide and live in the shadows of unconsciousness and feel bad and suffer. When you infuse consciousness and you observe, you feel the truth of what that is, you apologize, you say, I'm going to make a change. It starts right now, and I'm going to say something positive, something deeply kind and caring to yourself. Go ahead and say it. I'm sorry, I just said that. I'm trying. This is not easy for me. I'm learning. And I appreciate you, body. I appreciate you being here, allowing me to live. I appreciate you, mind, allowing me to think. I appreciate my lungs, allowing me to breathe. Whatever it is, bring a seed of gratitude into that moment and transform it. Imagine this dark space filled with shadows, unconsciousness, and this internal landscape of yourself that's just dealt with abuse and criticism and put downs. And every time you consciously recognize what's going on, you realize, you observe, and you feel what's going on. Let me be with the truth right now. This hurts. This is destructive. I don't want to do this. You're bringing a beam of light into that space. And when you do that again and again and again, and you retrain yourself and the neural pathways start to shift, you carve a new pathway. Instead of moving towards unconsciousness and suffering and pain, you start moving towards consciousness and love. Change happens. Your relationship starts to heal with yourself. Love becomes the stronger force within you. And you may think it's going to take decades to get there. It won't, because love is more powerful than fear, and love is your true self. And as you do this, you're coming back together with your true self. You're gradually walking. You're rising up, step by step, from unconsciousness and suffering, self-destruction, self-criticism, judgment, back to love, back to presence, back to wholeness. Okay? So do the work each day, each moment you catch yourself, bring awareness, take a breath, apologize, find a moment, find something to be grateful for, bring that energy in and receive it. Speak to yourself and receive it. And the healing will happen. The relationship with yourself will heal. You'll start to trust yourself, and love will be what you embody instead of pain, instead of fear. Okay? Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for spending this time. I hope it helped you, and I look forward to seeing you again.